Okay, so let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about on-page search engine optimization for realtors. This is an important topic because it is one of the only forms of search engine optimization that you have the most control of. So on-page versus off-page, I'm going to be discussing that and what that means. But generally, what we're talking about is your ranking on search engines, right? So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the topic, what is search engine optimization, right? For short, it's SEO. So what is SEO? And the best way that I like to describe it is search engine optimization is just a term to describe how effective your website is at communicating with search engines. And when I say search engines, I really mean Google, right? Google is by far the most actively used search engine in the world. And so really, when we're talking about optimizing your website, it's how can you make your website communicate to Google so that they can boost your rankings, right? You want to appear for the most results, right? The most relevant results. So this way you can garner all the traffic. So the reason that you optimize for search engines is to increase your website traffic and ultimately to generate high quality leads, okay? So just to give you an example, some insider information. I'm going to show you a Google search here. So I did a Google search for domain names for real estate agents. Okay, so this is a very popular search that people do, domain names for real estate agents. Now, these top results here that you see, it says ad, these are paid results. So people are paying to show up. Let's ignore those because that has nothing to do with SEO. SEO has to do with all the results that are not advertisements. So all of the organic results, right? These results you see here, nobody paid for them. They happen because they were optimized. Now, the reason I'm showing this specific example is when you type domain names for real estate agents, our website, Web4Realty.com, so our company, we're actually the top result for that query, right? So when I use the word query, I just refer to what people are typing in Google, right? So somebody types in that query, domain names for real estate agents, our website is number one. And we're going to get into why that happened, right? So the reason that this happened was because of that on-page SEO, on-page search engine optimization. And the reason that this was so interesting is that this blog, right? This blog is actually quite old. We wrote this in 2017, okay? This is still one of the most lead generating pages that we have as a company on our website. We get thousands of hits to this specific blog 2 years later, right? Almost 3 years now. And so that's why search engine optimization is so important, because when it's done well, you can have opportunities like this present themselves where you start ranking for very specific queries and you become the authority, right? You get on the first results and you generate a lot of traffic and a lot of leads. So I just wanted to share that specific example with you. It's a real life example of how we, Web4Realty, benefit from on-page search engine optimization. So optimization it's not something that happens overnight. In fact, it's actually a gradual process where you have a bunch of small changes and they compound and have a long-term effect, right? So optimization is not a feature, and I say this all the time. It's not a feature, it's not a tool. Anyone selling it to you like a feature or a tool or something you install on your website, that is all false, right? So search engine optimization, the word is optimization. It's a verb. It's something you do, not something you have. So always make that distinction, okay? All right, let's continue here. And let's talk about what is on-page SEO, which is what we're talking about today, and what is off-page SEO. So these are the two major branches of search engine optimization that you should understand. So on-page SEO refers to the signals that you provide to Google directly and visibly on your website and its pages. So this is something very visible. It's something that is, can directly be seen by the person who's on your website or who is on Google, right? So some examples or variables, we like to call them, include browser titles, the page speed, and your heading tags. So these are three examples of on-page optimizations you can make that will improve your ranking. And don't worry if you don't know what these are. I mean, page speed is pretty obvious, how fast your page loads, but heading tags, browser titles, these are the type of variables that I'm going to talk about in detail in this presentation. So by the end of this, I hope that you all walk away with, if somebody brings up this term, you can answer them right away. And I'm confident it will be like that. Okay, so we talked about what on-page is, right? On-page SEO is the visible, optimizations you make. So off-page, as you imagine, are the optimizations that are not specifically visible to your website visitors, right? Or not necessarily visible on your website, even to Google. So just to give you an example of what this is, because it's kind of an obscure term. So some off-page search engine optimization signals include backlinks, social media marketing, and domain authority. So let me explain each one. So what is a backlink? Okay, so a backlink is when some entity links to your website, right? So a third party links to your website. So let me give you an example of a really good backlink. Let's say that I just sold the most expensive condo in Toronto. Okay, so I sold it. It was the highest sold price in the city. And then, City TV reaches out to me. A local news station reaches out to me and they say, Rami, we want to write an article about this sale. We want to do an interview with you, etc. So now on their website, so now on the news station website, whether it's CBC or Global News or whatever the news station is, they're going to write an article or include me somewhere on their website, and they're going to link my website to it. So they're going to say, to learn more about Rami and his real estate services, go to raminazim.com. That is what a backlink is. So you're going to see that term is usually always mentioned when people talk about SEO. And it's not really an easy thing to get, but it is very valuable if you're getting it from a valuable source. So if something as popular as CBC is writing about me, that's good, right? Getting a backlink on like a random website that nobody knows about could actually harm your ranking. Okay, so that is what backlinks are. Social media marketing. So the reason why this is considered an off-page signal is because when you market on social media, right? So when you have a very active social media following and you're sharing your website and your blogs and everything on your social media, this is all connected in Google's eyes. So Google will start noticing and associating your website to that social media page, and it will take, some of the engagement from your social media and kind of use that to help your ranking for your website. It's just a way for them to understand who you are, how engaged you are in the business, and that's why in some ways it acts as a signal for optimization. And the last thing is something called domain authority. This is quite a complex term, like in terms of what it means. Basically, Google has a bunch of factors and they give your website or your page or your domain a ranking, an authority. Now, the rumors are that they don't use this anymore. I don't necessarily believe that that's the case because it does hold some value. But again, it's an off-page factor. It's something that nobody can see. It's not something visible. And it has to do with so many variables, right? It's kind of just like an overarching score on your website that develops over time. So one of the most influential ways to improve your domain authority is how long your website has been live. So I was telling you that search engine optimization is a process, right? So one of those things that you have no control over, but it has a big effect, is how long your website has been active and running, right? So the longer your website has been running and has been active, so that it hasn't had any like downtime or anything like that, the higher you rank because Google considers it a reliable resource. So that's, for example, a off-page factor that you really don't have control of. Okay, so both on-page and off-page search engine optimization factors into your overall ranking. But it's arguable, okay? So you can argue that on-page search engine optimization is a prerequisite to even have off-page factors. So a lot of the off-page SEO is gonna backpack off the on-page SEO. So that's why I'm really stressing on-page search engine optimization. In fact, it's really the main optimization that you can do. You don't need any technical skill to be, to do any on-page search engine optimization. It's not going to cost you any money. So this is why it's a great opportunity. So I'm going to give you guys a buyer beware. Okay. So a lot of agents come up to me and let me know about companies that are selling them search engine optimization services. So if you have an individual or a company that comes up to you via email or phone call, and they try to sell you specifically, if they try to sell you backlinks, right, or link building, if you hear those terms, just run away. This is a scam, almost always a scam. I've already explained to you what a backlink is, right? There's no way that these companies are going to get authority figures like Global News to put your website on theirs. What they're going to do is put your website on random websites that nobody goes to and has no benefit to your ranking. So that is just a little buyer beware. I like to tell people, anyone selling you search engine optimization as a feature or as a tool, or in these backlinking or link building, just ignore them entirely. If you feel like a search engine optimization company has reached out to you and they seem like they know what they're talking about, don't be shy to reach out to me directly, and I will help you engage in that conversation. So let the numbers talk. Why optimize? Why are we talking about search engine optimization, specifically on-page search engine optimization? A few reasons, right? How much does search engine optimization cost? The answer is $0. It's free, okay? It doesn't cost you anything to optimize your website. Of course, time is money and it does cost you time, but I mean, this is what we live and breathe, right? We live and breathe real estate. This is what we do. We're entrepreneurs, and one of the hats that we have to wear is marketing, right? So we shouldn't really complain about the time investment. And of course, if you're really busy and you're, having so many listings that you really don't have time for marketing, then that's a great time to get an assistant or a marketing department, and they can handle it. But generally, SEO is free. The second most important part is that the leads that you acquire through search engine optimization are high quality leads, right? And the reason for that, it's common, or sorry, not common sense. It makes sense. If somebody's going on Google and they're typing in something, right? They're typing in, why should I live in Oakville? And your website comes up and they click on it and you answer their question. You've basically answered everything that they wanted. They looked for something, they found the answer through your website, and now if they're reaching out to you, clearly they have a high intent to engage with you. So that's why they're known as high quality leads. A lot of different methods. So you can pay to get your website showing on Google, right? And it can be very effective, but it's known to provide bogus leads, low quality leads, leads who don't necessarily want to engage with you. So when you compare, apples to apples or apples to oranges, search engine optimization, the leads that you get from there are generally the highest quality. Two other stats that are kind of related to search engine optimization, because search engine optimization really comes down to content in many ways. So when we look at people who invest their time into writing content, right, like through their blog, they are 30% more likely to generate leads than those who don't. And this year alone, those who blogged on Web4Realty's platform, so this is data that I collected from our users, those who blogged even just once, if they blogged once, when you just compare them, like you do a regression, they were 5 times more likely to get 20 leads or more than those who don't. So people who blog, generally, not only do they generate more leads, but they have a higher likelihood of getting 20 leads in a year, right? So even if some of them are bogus, many of those could be high quality leads. So I hope these numbers give you a little bit of a motivation, and let's continue. So let's get optimized. This is the important part of this webinar. So we talked about what search engine optimization is. We talked about what is on-page SEO, what is off-page SEO, and we talked about why. Why are we doing SEO? Why do you want to optimize, your website for search engines? So now I want to talk about how to actually do it. How do you become a practitioner? And I'm going to do this in a few ways. I'm going to talk about it, but I'm also going to show you on the website how to do it, right? So I'm going to log into my website here. And this way I can show you in real time how to do some of the things that I'm telling you to do. All right, so I've logged in. So all of you guys have access to a backend, just like this one, where you can get all of your stats, and you can, of course, manage your website. So I'm going to go to the PageManager, and I'm going to take it from there. Okay, so let's get optimized. So here are the on-page factors to focus on when you are publishing a page or a blog, right? So browser titles I've mentioned, meta descriptions, clear URLs, your heading tags, image optimization, and internal links. So these are the things I'm actually going to discuss and show you how to do in real time. Okay, so I'm excited to show you that. And really, I want you guys to walk away from this webinar. If I bring up any of these terms, it'll be easy, no problem. Okay. Now, there are other factors that you'll see here. You have code structure, page speed, mobile optimization, sitemap, schema, and SSL. The reason I put the Web4Realty logo here is because we take care of that. This is not something that you need to worry about. This is what we have to worry about. So we, Web4Realty, have control and the power on these elements, right? And we just want you to focus on these elements. And this just comes down to your content, right? Your pages and your content. And we give you the tool that makes it very easy for you to manage these. And that tool is called PageManager, which many of you have used according to the survey, and many of you haven't used. Now, one of the most common answers I got was that people find adding these content or optimizing your website to be very difficult, right? It's either they don't have time or it's very difficult. So hopefully through this webinar, I'm going to show you how easy it is to at least perform these functions, okay? So let's start with browser titles, right? So what is a browser title? I'm going to show you by running an example. Okay, let's just go on Google right now and let's just type in anything. Let's type in Toronto homes for sale. Okay, so you see these blue titles. These are browser titles. Okay, so anything you see anytime on Google when you run a search, whatever the blue title is, that is the browser title. So if somebody asks you what a browser title is, it's this. It's the title you see when you run a result, okay? So your browser title is one of the most important search engine optimization elements, right? Which makes sense. If somebody's typing, a query on Google, most likely the browser title is going to be the first thing that they interact with, right? So the title tells the visitor and Google what they can expect to find on the page. So let's just use this example. So if I look at this browser title, Toronto MLS listings and real estate for sale, what am I expecting to find? I'm expecting to find listings, right, in Toronto. So there's a few rules that you should follow when you are creating a browser title, right? You need to include the main keyword near the start of the title. So let's go back to our example. I wrote Toronto homes for sale. So most of these browser titles will have the words Toronto homes for sale generally in the start, in the front, right? You could see the higher ranked ones, your Toronto homes for sale, Toronto real estate, houses for sale in Toronto. So these keywords are showing up in the front of the browser title. You want to also keep your browser title under 70 characters, okay? So, and I'll show you how to do that. Also, Google recognizes spam, right? So if you try to create a title by stuffing it with keywords or making it, all capital letters or just something very spammy, that is actually a red flag. Modern search engines like Google, they can recognize the spam and you're not going to benefit at all from doing that. Another key point is in your browser title, you should add your brand. Now, as a real estate agent, you don't necessarily have like a company name for yourself, but your name is your brand, right? So if for me, Rami Nazim, I would include that at the end of my browser title, just so that I continue having that branding, right? So it doesn't need to be in the front. And here's an important one. So the keywords that you use in your browser title, they should match the headings and the content that you use in your body, like in your actual page. So just to show you an example, here I typed low commission in Oshawa, okay? So this is a query, and this agent here, you could see their browser title right off the bat, low commission in Durham region. Google is very intelligent, so Google knows that Oshawa is in Durham, right? They have their own indexing. So anyways, this agent has shown up, but the important thing is, so when I click on this link, so they're appearing number one. They made sure that they also included that terminology right in the beginning of the, in the page. So in this page, you will see the term, low commissions in Durham region in this content, right? And it makes sense. If your browser title mentions a specific topic, the actual content of the page should also discuss that topic. It can't be about a different topic, right? Okay, so let's continue. So that is a browser title. So let me show you actually how to add your browser title, right? So when you log into your page manager, let's say that you want to add a page, right? So you want to add a page. I'm going to call this page testing, okay? And of course, you could make it a main page, a sub page, a hidden page, doesn't really matter. In this example, I will make it a main page, and I'm going to make it a content page because I'm going to be adding content. So you see here where it says browser title, that's it. That's your browser title. This is exactly where you can create your browser title. So if I wanted to make a page about, square one condos, okay, then in my browser title, I can add, square one condos for sale, Rami Nazim, my brand, right? Mississauga Realtor. Just as an example, that could be my browser title. And it actually tells you at the top here how many characters you've entered, right? So like I said, you want to keep it under 70, which I've done. And it tells you how many characters, that's it. How many characters are entered. So it's kind of like a counter for you to make sure you don't go over, right? And then I can add my page. So now I've created this page and it has that browser title. Now, what if you wanted to change it? If you want to change the browser title, it's very easy. All you do is you click on this button right here where it says SEO settings. And when I click on that, you'll see my existing browser title, but of course I can go and change it whenever I want. So that's how easy it is to really manage your browser titles. And you could do that for every single page on your website. So if I click on this page and I click on the SEO settings, again, I could change the browser title of this specific page. So we're done talking about browser titles. Let's get on to the next element, which is meta descriptions. So what is a meta description? So let's go back to our original search, Toronto homes for sale. So you know that the blue headline is the browser title. And so this, what you can see here, these sentences written under the title, that is the description, right? Here's a description, here's a description, here's a description, right? So these are descriptions. And what they're meant to do is explain what is going to be on that page in more details, right? So just let's read Zucasa's. So Zucasa says, search houses for sale in Toronto, browse MLS real estate listings for detached houses, semi-detached houses, and attached houses at zucasa.com. So that's their description, right? It's very straightforward. So meta descriptions are short page descriptions that appear under the title in the search results, just like I showed you. So they are actually not an official ranking factor, okay? But they directly influence your click rates, which is why I count them as a ranking factor, right? So what does that mean? That means that if you have a good description, because people do read these, it will lead to a click. So if you have a good description, somebody's interested, they will click. The moment they click, now Google knows that whatever you searched and whatever you produced was receptive. The audience was receptive to the page. And because of this, it will indirectly, impact your ranking. So having a good meta description is a great way to really get engagement, okay? So you want to keep it under 160 characters. Good thing to note is that on mobile devices, it actually cuts off at 120 characters. You want to include your entire keyword or entire query, and you want to use complete sentences and try to avoid numbers and weird characters, like a dash or an and symbol or a plus symbol. You want to avoid those. So again, in the page manager, the same way that you access your browser title is the same way that you access your description. So you click on the SEO settings button, and right here you have your meta description that you can add, and it tells you exactly how many characters you've written. So like I said, you want it to be sentences. So let's go back to my square one page I made, and let's try to come up with a description, right? So I click SEO settings, I go to my description. So here I can say, for square one condos for sale, discover Mississauga's, most sought out community. The square one condo market is thriving, and buying a condo in the area could or has great returns on investment. That's just an example. So I'm at 153 characters, which is just under my 160. I'm happy with it. I press save, and I could change it at any time. So it really is that easy. So that is meta descriptions. Let's get on to the next factor, heading tags. Okay, so this one's important. So heading tags, also known as body tags, refer to the HTML element. So it refers to H1, H2, H3. So if you are reading this and you're wondering what the heck is Rami talking about, the easier way to explain it is that heading tags are kind of like how you break down a table of contents in a book, or, So just to give you a live example of what a heading tag would look like, so let's go on a website. Let's go to our Square One Condos page, okay? So maybe my first heading is gonna be why live in Square One, okay? And then let's say that I wanna add a second heading, and the second heading is about a different topic, like Square One condo market stats. And let's make a third heading and say, find out what my Square One condo is worth. So these can be headings. Why? Because under them, I could add content, right? Just the same way that you would do like a chapter in a book. So let me make it more clear. So there's my first heading, it has some content. Then I can have my second heading and it would have some content. And then I would have my third heading and it would have some content, right? Just like you would read a book, kind of like chapters. So anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is Google does not know what the heading is versus what is not the heading, right? If you just read this, because we are human and we could see, okay, well, this font size is a little bit bigger, this font size is a little bit smaller, it looks like a headline. So for us, it's easy to understand what a heading is. But for Google, you need to actually let them know. And the way you do that is with heading tags, right? So these tags help organize your content for readers, and they help search engines distinguish what part of your content is most important. And they function in a hierarchy, right? So headlines that you mark as heading 1 are ranked higher than those that you rank heading 2 versus heading 3, etc. So it has a little bit of a hierarchy. So the headings that you think are the most important, you should set those as your H1 and H2. The headings that are less important, you would make them the H3, 4, 5, etc. So how do you set the heading tag? So as you can see on my page here, I've created a headline and I added some content under it. So all you have to do is, let's say that I think this is my most important headline. I would just highlight it, right? And you'll notice here, it says the word normal, right? This just means normal content. If I click on it, I can set heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. I could pick which one. So if I click heading 1, boom. Now on Google, in the code, they will see that this is a heading 1, right? If I want to make this one heading 2, I would just highlight it, okay? And click on normal and change it to heading 2. So now you'll see it says heading 2 there. So it's that easy. So when you're building your pages and you're adding your content, right, whether it's a page or a blog, whatever your headlines are, just make sure you highlight them and set the heading tag, right? My rule of thumb is you should only have one H1 tag, H1 meaning heading 1. Then the rest of them can be H2, H3, H4, etc. I generally find that is the best way for Google to read the content, because if you have more than one H1 tag, it might confuse Google, okay? So that is heading tags. A lot of people get confused by that, so I hope that this made it very clear. It's just like putting a title of a chapter, and the reason why it has a name, heading tag, is because you actually have to tag it so that Google can read it, right? Okay, let's continue. Clear URLs. This one's another easy one. So what is a URL, right? Or what is a clear URL? Let's go back to our handy dandy search. I type Toronto homes for sale, right? So here is my browser title. Here is my meta description. And this thing right here, this is the URL, the link, right? So if you look at this one, this is realtor.ca/explore Canada/Ontario/ Toronto real estate. If I look at this one, it's homefinder.ca/homes for sale/ So this URL is important because Google also reads this, okay? So your page URLs should be very simple to digest. for both readers and for search engines. So I actually give an example here of a good URL versus a bad URL. So what is a good URL? If I made a Mississauga buyer's guide, my URL should be, raminazim.com/Mississauga-buyers-guide. That is a good URL. Very clean. It has my keywords in there. It's all good. A bad URL would be something that is, gibberish. Like this looks like gibberish. There's no way Google's going to know what this is talking about. There's no way your readers are going to know what this is talking about. Has no benefit to you. So you want to make sure that you have very clear URLs. So let's go back to my square one page. And how do you change this? So what if I wanted to control my URL? Well, it's very easy. We go to our handy dandy SEO settings button. We click on it. And right here, it says clear URL. So you actually have full control to change what this URL is. So this one says square one condos. I might want to take it a step further and say square one condos for sale, for example. And I press save. So now my URL would be square one condos for sale. So that's it. That's how you manage your URLs. Just make them very clear. Whatever your page name is or whatever your title is, your URL should pretty much match it, right? Now let's talk about image optimization, okay? So every single image you have on your website needs to have something called alt text, okay? And I'll explain what that is, and I'll show you how to add it. The reason you need to add alt text is because Google, they can't read your image, right? Their technology, their artificial intelligence is not there yet where they can look at an image and know what it is. So it's your job to tell them what it is. And you do that by adding alt text. So alt text tells Google, you're telling Google, hey, this is what this image is, okay? It's putting your image into words. And that means, so there's a few benefits. So by adding alternative text, obviously you're adding additional content for Google to read, but also you're actually helping Google's image search, right? Leads can actually start finding you through your images. So somebody could go on Google Images and type in, Oakville homes for sale or Toronto homes for sale, and these images might lead to your website. So you might have an image that's ranking well because you added the alternative text, and somebody will click on it and it will take them to your website. I'm not saying it's a common thing to happen, but it can happen, especially if somebody's typing in an address and your listing has that address, right? So just something to keep in mind. So when you're adding alternative text or alt text, there's two things that you should keep in mind. You want to make it descriptive and specific, and you want to keep it shorter than 125 characters, okay? So let's do one together. All right, so let me just take this image. So let's say I go to my website, right? And I want to add an image. So why live in square one? Let's say I wanted to add an image. Okay, so I'm going to add, a 50-50 section here. Okay, and then I'm going to drag and drop the image icon widget here. Okay, and now let's add the image. So I just took a screenshot just so it's easy. So I've added this image here, and our system makes it very easy. Right here, it says alt text. So here I can add my alt text. So I could say a photo of square, obviously this is not what it is, but photo of square one during sunset on October 2019. There is a nice descriptive alternative text for Google to read. And of course I have all these other settings I can add. I can add a mouse over effect. I can add a link, etc. But right now we're just talking about optimizing the image with alt text. So I've added it. I press add, and that's it. So that text is not visible to anyone other than Google. So it's for Google to look at, not for anyone else's eyes, but that's how easy it is to add it. Now, if you want to change it, very easy. We hit the pencil icon, we go to my image, I press edit, and I can go to the settings and change this alt text. So very easy to do. So that is everything to do. So when we're talking about optimizing your images for search engines, we're talking about alt text. So that's done. But there's another level of optimization that people don't do. So this includes having a relevant file name and a small file size, okay? So if your image is like 7 megabytes, right? It's like a large image, you're gonna wanna reduce it, because if your image is very large, and I'm not talking about large in terms of like the resolution, I'm talking about large in terms of the file size, it's gonna slow down your website loading speed. And page speed is something that affects your ranking. So you wanna make sure you optimize your images. And let me give you a few tips. So the first tip is making sure that your image is not unnecessarily large in terms of resolution. So let's look at this image I made here. Let's say that I was only planning to use this image in a small version. So I don't need it to be this big, right? All I need to do is using a basic photo editor. So I'm just using the regular preview, app on Mac. And if you have a Windows computer, you have Microsoft Paint. You can just go and adjust the size. So if I only need it to be like half the size, I just make it half the size. And that's it. That will automatically reduce the file size. So that's tip number one. Very easy to do. No special software, no special skills. Very easy. The second thing is using a website called tinypng.com. Okay, I'm going to add this website into the chat so that you guys can have this. Okay, so this website, I love it. It will take an image and it will reduce the file size. It uses a technology, they kind of explain it here, but pretty much it finds a way to reduce the file size without affecting the quality in a major way. So just to give an example, I take this image that I made and let's drag and drop it into TinyPNG. So it made it from 31 kilobytes, which is already tiny, but whatever. It turned it from 31 kilobytes into 7 kilobytes. So it reduced the size by 78%. And I could press download, and that's it. It's a free tool. It's absolutely free. I have no idea how they make money, to be completely honest with you, but let's use it while we can because it is an awesome tool for optimizing images. I use it every single day. So that's just a little insider tip on how to optimize your images. All right, so we're done talking about image optimization. Let's move on to the next section. So this one is about content. So you want to optimize the content itself. So when we're talking about content, we're talking about what you've actually written inside of your page, the actual content of the page. So something that people don't realize is Google looks at user signals. So an example would be how much time somebody spends on your website, right? They look at these things and it influences your ranking. Therefore, if you write engaging content that people are receptive to, it will have a direct impact on your ranking, right? So just because you made a lot of content, if people are opening the website and then leaving right away, if they're just bouncing right off the bat, you're going to lose their interest. And if you're losing their interest, Google will now think that your website should not be ranked for that term. So let's use a very straightforward example. If I type Toronto homes for sale in Google, okay, and I click on this result, if I click on this, and if I immediately look at this and then hit back, what am I telling Google? I'm telling Google that, hey, I typed Toronto homes for sale. I clicked on the link that you guys gave me. You guys said this is number one, and there was nothing there for me, so I left. You're telling Google that this website is not relevant, and they will then use that information to remove this ranking or lower the ranking. And it makes sense. We use Google because Google is reliable. We use Google because when I type something in, I get the right answer. It's very, it's something that we use every single day. So if Google is using data like how long somebody spends on your page, if they are able to get that data, which they are, they can make sure that whatever results are appearing on the first page are genuinely the best results. So that is why you want to make sure that whatever you write, whatever content you make is engaging. You want to have great headlines. You want to make sure that you're using images, you're leveraging video. You want to make sure that whatever you write is going to make the person continue to read. So here are some tips that I have for writing engaging content. So you want to avoid using quote unquote big words. Reason being is that you want people to be able to easily read the content without having to open the dictionary. And this is just make sure you use standard language, right? Language that we use every day. Use short sentences and short paragraphs, okay? You don't want somebody to open the page and feel like they're back in their master's program, reading a thesis, right? They're there to read content, generally something entertaining and informative. So let's keep it that way, right? You want to keep things informal. Write the way you speak. A big one, big one. You want to cater to lazy readers. And that's why using numbered lists is so powerful. The reason we rank very well, like I said, if somebody types domain names for real estate, the reason we rank as the first result, I really think it's because people are actually reading even if they're not reading the whole thing, they're reading the numbers, right? So they're just reading the headlines. And I'm sure all of us have fallen victim to this. We've all seen an article that had a really good headline, and instead of reading everything, we just read the main headlines. This is where we get our value from. We read 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and we kind of ignore the content. This is how a lot of readers do read. So as long as you're using strategies to kind of cater to them, it will help keep them engaged, right? Imagine this blog if I did not have headlines. Just imagine if it was just paragraph, paragraph, paragraph. People would just leave. They would lose interest, right? So cater to these people because we are those people. All right. Simple techniques, bolding, italicizing, underscoring, coloring, use these types of character traits to give more weight to certain sentences. And again, this is very easy to do in the Page Manager. The Page Manager functions like Microsoft Word. If you want to make this font bigger, you just highlight and make the font bigger. If you want to add more line spacing, you just click the line height button and add more line spacing. It is quite straightforward. It's not a very complicated system. And I have video tutorials on how to use this. So if you get lost with using the Page Manager, we have video tutorials for every single aspect of the tool. And even if the tutorials don't do the job, our support team can help you. So we are always there to help you. If you're using our tool, we want to reward you by providing you the support you need when you need it. So keep that in mind. Okay, so here is another insider tip, okay? You want to aim to target long tail keywords. Okay, so what is a long tail keyword? This graph is actually a great way to explain it, okay? So when you're writing content or you're creating a page, if you do a single word keyword, right? Like t-shirts, here's an example, t-shirts. That is extremely competitive. Okay, if I type t-shirts, there's just too much competition for that keyword. There's going to be so many ads. You're going to be competing with, all these companies that sell t-shirts. You're going to be competing with Google's Google business page. It's just way, way, way too competitive with these very, very simple keywords. Whereas as you get into longer phrases, so instead of using a keyword like Oakville homes or Oakville real estate, if you get into longer keywords, which are known as long tail keywords, the competition is much less. And here's the thing, not only is the competition much less, but it's also highly specific. So it actually has a higher conversion rate. So again, let me give you an example. A very specific search would be domain names for real estate agents, right? So why was this so effective for us? Because, the short, you could say the short tail keyword would have been domain names, right? The medium would be domain names or domain names real estate, right? But as soon as you get into like domain names for real estate agents, that is a very specific query. The person who's written this is looking for a very specific answer, and we were able to provide that answer, right? So that is why when you're writing content, think about these long tail keywords. Think about what is somebody typing on Google, right? And I actually did some examples myself, right? So here's something more relevant to your business. I typed on Google, is it better to sell my home in the summer or winter? That is a long tail keyword. This is actually a great question to answer. So I typed this in and look who's benefiting from this, right? I look at some of the results. So obviously like big companies like Global News, they have websites, but look, the third result is just an agent. This agent capitalized on this long tail keyword and they're getting all the traffic. I open this and they answer the question as best as they could. Should you sell during the winter or the summer? So he wrote, what are the advantages of selling in the winter? It's such a simple thing to do. Very simple content. And look, he's done the numbered list. So if I'm lazy, I could just read these, right? He added some internal links, and I'm going to talk about that soon. He did everything that you need to do pretty much to rank. But really, he focused on a long tail keyword. And if I'm going to leave you with any advice, if you're planning on building a page, look for those long tail keywords. Another word for it is try to answer questions, like very specific questions, right, that are related to real estate. So I wanted to show you another example. So is it better to sell my home in summer or winter? We went through that. I had another example here. Do I need to stage my home? So here's an example of another long tail keyword. And again, who's benefiting from this? Kate Watson. Not sure who she is. She's an agent, but she benefited from that. She made a blog that answered that exact question. This is the power of on-page SEO. You answer a question in a very relevant way. Make sure you add your heading tags. Make sure you kind of do all those optimizations I was talking about. But in return, you will be rewarded by getting all of that traffic. Okay, yeah, so I hope that made sense. So don't try to make a page called Oakville Homes for Sale. You're not going to compete. Like, realistically, you're not going to compete. If you want to compete for that, you're going to have to pay for it. Like, you have to pay through Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever it is, right? But if you really want to compete, try to make pages that answer specific questions, right? Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about was internal links. So again, this is the last on-page optimization that you need to do. And this is something that in the beginning, you're not really going to be able to do. And I'll tell you why. So internal linking is the process of hyperlinking to other pages on your website. So internal linking is important for two reasons. Number one, your readers will click on them. And if they click on them, they stay on your website longer. And if they stay on your website longer, that's going to help Google know that whatever your website's doing, it's doing it right. Okay, so it'll help your ranking. The second reason that you should link or add internal links is because Google themselves go through those links and it gives them what they call contextual cues. Pretty much you're just giving Google more context about what your business is all about and what you should be ranking for, okay? So one little key tip is if you do plan on doing internal links, don't have like a million. Keep it under 10. You should have really under 10 links, and whatever those links are should be very relevant to your page. So just to give you an example of what an internal link is, let's go back to this website I was showing you. So internal links are right here. You could see he's linking to other pages on his website, right? So I'm reading this blog, but while I'm reading, I might be interested in whatever this topic is, like the condo market. And when I click on this, it takes me to another page on his website that talks about that topic, right? So that is an internal link. And you want to make sure that your internal links are relevant, right? So the reason I'm telling you that you probably can't do it right away is because in the beginning, especially if you guys haven't been doing this, you probably don't have that many pages. But over time, as you build more and more pages, you will be able to internally link. So let's say that I wrote this page about Square One condos, and let's say next week I am making another page talking about schools in the Square One area. In that new page, I might be able to find a way to link this page, right? So I'm creating these internal links. I'm giving people more reason to stay on my website, and I'm giving Google more content to crawl. So internal links are very powerful. It's just something that you're gonna have to build over time once you have the resources, pretty much the pages to link to, okay? For those of you who have no more questions, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Have a great Friday. And again, thank you so much for joining me in this webinar.